Analysis of Jeff Martin's Oklahoma Overtime, presented by Bob Hurley RV, starts now. Good evening, Oklahoma, and welcome to Overtime. I am Colby Daniels. We have a jam-packed show for you tonight. The college football season is just 1 week away. That means Oklahoma UTEP on a Friday night in Norman, Oklahoma to get us going, followed by Oklahoma State and Tulsa, obviously, on Saturday. Great opening weekend here in the state of Oklahoma. Big headlines coming into tonight's show. Oklahoma college football playoff hopes. They made the trip to the playoff a year ago at 10-2 in the regular season. What is the college football playoff floor for the Sooners in 2026? Oklahoma State also is considered a dark horse to potentially make a college football playoff run, but coming off of one win a year ago, I think some Cowboy fans would settle for being back to relevant in the college football world. Are they positioned for an Indiana-like rise in 2026? And finally, the SEC says no to former NFL signees. All of that coming up tonight on Oklahoma Overtime. Make sure you participate in our social media poll. Follow us on Twitter at OKOvertime. Now, the poll question today: do you think Brent Venables deserved a contract extension before the start of the 2026 season? We already have some great comments on this, which we will hit a little later in the show. All right, we head to Tulsa and welcome in our heavy hitters. That is Cameron Johnson and Spencer Tillis. As we get underway talking Oklahoma football, they kick things off Friday night. Big expectations for the Sooners. Are they going back to the college football playoff? What is their playoff floor? I will ask you the question. If they go 9-3, are they punching their ticket?
It all comes down to who those three losses are against, right? I mean, if you assume those are coming against some respectable teams and respectable locations, for instance, Michigan at Michigan, Georgia in Athens, Texas potentially in the Red River rivalry, those are all respectable and they're early enough in the season that you can recover it. I think the question is no longer can a 9-3 team get in, it is which one can make the best case for itself. And in that instance, OU certainly makes a strong case for itself. But if you lose games you should not be losing, especially some at home and later in the season, that's going to be hard to come back from. But ultimately, if you keep it respectable, then they can bounce back.
You know, at some point a three-loss team will get in, but it's not going to be one with only 9 wins. It's going to be a team that makes the conference title game and then comes up short there and still has a solid resume. At 9-3, that would mean that OU not only had the 3 losses in the regular season, but they didn't make the SEC title game. There's no way a team is going to go ahead and do that, regardless of how challenging that schedule is. And it is. It's one of the most difficult schedules that they're going to have probably in the entire country this year. When you start looking at all the games that they have, whether it's Texas and you're talking about a rival there, going to Michigan, and the number of ranked teams on there. Now, could it happen? Possibly. I wouldn't bet a nickel on it, though, because no team has done it yet, and they would need a lot of help from everyone else to make that happen for them.
By pretty much every metric in college football, they have what is considered to be at least a top 5 to top 10 toughest schedule in the country. 9-3 is tricky, though, because I always feel like at the end of the year you hear, who did you lose to? Do you have any bad losses? Or who did you beat? Do you have any quality wins? They have Michigan out of the gate. They have Georgia, obviously, and Texas all on the front end of that schedule. If they were to lose all 3 of those games, those are your 3 toughest opponents, so no bad losses there. But if the back end of the schedule is at least somewhat comparable to what we think it's going to be, you might not have any super quality wins on the back end either. So in that scenario, if everybody's kind of what we think they're going to be, do you think the quality win situation down the stretch would be enough?
I mean, it's like you said, if these teams pan out to where they are ranked right now, you've got some top 10 opponents in there in Ole Miss and Texas A&M, I believe. And if you can win those, I think, I can't remember if they're both at home or if one's on the road, but I mean, those are some resume boosting wins, but I think they certainly help the case. It's not the same as last year when you're playing Alabama and Tennessee in November, but it would be close, but I think it would help. Is it enough? I don't know.
I mean, the committee always loves it when you are playing well down the stretch. So if they lost those first few games and then picked up speed, it would help them out. But the bottom line is the committee's also going to say, hey, if everything goes according to plan, or at least everything breaks the way it should, Texas makes the playoffs, Michigan makes the playoffs, and you had 3 chances against teams that did get in, and you went 0-3 in those opportunities. So at that point, OU gets what they deserve, and then they wouldn't make it in the playoffs would be the argument that would be very easy for the committee to justify and leave them as one of the good bowl games, but on the outside looking into the playoffs.
The SEC is a gauntlet, no doubt. 2 years ago, first year of the 12-team playoff, 3 SEC teams go to the playoff. Last year, 5 SEC teams go to the playoff. Without looking at records, what do you think the magic number for the SEC is in 2026?
Well, I know the Big Ten has had the run of success here recently, but the SEC is still a respected conference. We see this in the preseason and throughout the season every year. So I feel comfortable saying probably 3 or 4 teams get in. I know it's shifting a little bit these days, but is it the 5 from last year? I don't know that I can say it goes that far, but 3 for me is the safe number.
I think so much of it comes to that one non-conference, like big matchups that all these teams have. Like, how does OU do against Michigan? Can they go ahead and make the conference look better so once they start beating up on each other, you can still say, yeah, like, we did lose a couple games within the SEC, but that's because this is the SEC and this is the best conference once again. I can't see this year being one where you get more than 4 teams in. Mostly because of the Big Ten's dominance the last 3 years. They win 3 straight titles. And the top end talent at the Big Ten right now is proving to be better ever since the portal became a thing than the SEC. There are still 10 great teams, very, very good teams in the SEC, and it's a quality conference. But they haven't had the teams at the very top end. So you can justify and make an argument for a bunch of them. But at that point, they're only going to let so many in. I can't see more than 4 getting in.
4's the sweet spot for me as well. I think 4 SEC teams. Will Oklahoma be one of those teams? They'll have to improve the run game if they're going to punch their ticket to the college football playoff. Stone Weber joins the show next after the review, looking at the Sooner run game. All right, we are moments away from taking a deep dive into the Oklahoma run game on After Review. I want to remind you, we are going to get to all of your questions, comments, and hot takes coming up in the next segment, so make sure you follow us at OK Overtime now on Twitter and submit those questions and comments. We are bringing Stone Weber into the studio here on Oklahoma Overtime. Stone, big topic of conversation this entire offseason following Oklahoma's loss to Alabama. How much is the OU run game going to improve in 2026?
Well, we all know that the secret to any success in college football and really any level of football is a good defense and a good run game. The Sooners have had the good defense part, but the run game has been severely lacking these last couple of years. 118 yards per game last season, 112th in college football. And then look at that. The team who won the national championship, Indiana, had a whole 100 yards better a game. So it's something the Sooners have really tried to emphasize and focus on over the offseason. And they think that they've done that. They've brought in a couple of big freshmen. Also, maybe the most impactful player, Lloyd Avant, the Colorado State transfer, a big body, 5'10", 218 pounds, very physical player, knows how to work out of the screen game as well. So that's another element Oklahoma's been struggling to have these last couple of years. The Sooners, 3.5 yards per carry on the ground last season. Avant, 4.6. That's already a major improvement. They also have returning players, Xavier Robinson, Torrey Blaylock, guys who are experienced in the offense, able to have some big plays last season, but that was really the only way that you saw the run game get off to success. They weren't able to kind of dink and dunk their way down the field like we all know Oklahoma has done and historically is known for. Also, of course, bringing in Rocky Beers, Jack Vandersleer, and Hayden Hansen. These guys all know how to block and be effective in a run game. Florida and Tennessee had better run games last year than Oklahoma statistically. And, of course, we all know the Hall of Famer Jason Witten coming in. He knows how to be an effective part of the run game. That's something that Oklahoma definitely has on paper improved on. We'll just have to see next Friday if it will actually pay off that way.
It's an incredibly deep backfield. I know a lot of the concerns about the DeMarco Murray era for OU running backs were the consistency in which guys played. It kind of just seemed like different guys got the call at different times, and it was always a struggle, it felt like, to get a running back into a rhythm. That feels like it's not going to be as much of an issue, not to mention, I mean, you mentioned the tight ends being a much bigger part of the run game. The offensive line is a year older. Those were a lot of young guys. And I think the one area of all this that nobody talks about, Ben Arbuckle was a first-year play caller at Oklahoma. Not a first-year play caller in general, but going to a new place, a lot to take on, learning all the new personnel, and trying to, find a happy medium with every, aspect of your offense. He will be much more comfortable, I think, calling plays in year 2, and I would imagine that also sets you up to set up the run game in a more advantageous way.
And I think going off of that, like you said, Arbuckle in his first year at Oklahoma had called plays before, but not at this sort of level. Going off of that, you went with what he knew, right? He knew, okay, if I can get John Mateer to throw the ball to Isaiah Satania, good things are going to happen. If I can have John Mateer on a quarterback draw, on a QB-designed run, good things are probably going to happen. But like you said, coming in a little bit more, you feel like you have a little bit more playmakers, especially on the outside as well. And, of course, that opens things up for the running backs as well. You have tight ends who you feel like are improved on from a season ago. Wide receivers, Terrell Harris, I feel like improved on from a season ago. These are guys who everyone's coming into year 2, not year 2 under Venables, but year 2 under Arbuckle. Everyone feels like they kind of have a little bit better idea of what they're doing this time around, and I think the offense as a whole is looking to take a big step forward this season.
If the traditional run game is improved like everybody thinks it's going to improve, John Mateer and the run game won't be as big a factor, but it's not something you want to cut out completely because obviously that's part of his game and part of what makes him dynamic.
He's very threatening with his legs. I think part of the issue I'm sure Oklahoma fans had with it was the quarterback draws every time. Late in the games, the third, fourth quarters, you're putting your QB in a bit of a difficult situation, but like you said, it's something where you don't want to take it out of his game where he's running for 20, 25 yards against Tennessee in a game that you're losing at that time. So it's something that they want to have, but like you said, maybe not as much as they had in 2025.
All right, after review with Stone Weber here on Oklahoma Overtime, we're going to take a timeout. Your questions, comments, and hot takes. Is OSU the next Indiana? That's next. Welcome back to the show. It is time for From the Sidelines, where we take your opinions, your questions, your hot takes. This is your opportunity to be involved and have your voice heard here on Oklahoma Overtime. I'm Colby Daniels along with Cameron Johnson and Spencer Tillis. Feel free to tweet us at OKOvertimeNow, where we have the first tweet of the night. This brings up an interesting debate from Stone_Weber on Twitter. At OK Overtime Now, with all the OSU Indiana comparisons, are the Cowboys closer to going 6-6 or competing for a playoff spot this year? Hashtag OKOT. So Oklahoma State getting a lot of comparisons. Eric Morris, great job at UNT, takes a Power 4 job, brings a bunch of his guys over. Just as Curt Cignetti did at James Madison, goes to Indiana, makes the playoff in year 1, wins the national championship in year 2. So year 1 expectations for Eric Morris, do you think they are closer to making the playoff or closer to going 6-6?
Well, I think the main reason you see those comparisons is because Indiana proved that the turnaround time on programs is not what it used to be. It's much faster now with the portal. So I think it's understandable. You see Oklahoma State come in with basically the North Texas team that was super successful last year. So you think hopefully if that translates, they'll pick up right where they left off. But ultimately, you got to give the runway there. I think Eric Morris and the Big 12 can do a lot. Just because the Big 12, you've had 6 different champions in 6 different years. So you never know what you're going to get. But ultimately, I err on the side of Oklahoma State being closer to a playoff run than 6-6. But until they face someone that is not their own teammates, it's hard to really know how last year's success will translate.
I mean, the problem is he really is taking over a team where the cupboard was completely bare. They had 1 win last year, and you look at the losing streak that they've had in the conference. His coaching style, the way that he likes to play the air raid offense that he's going to be bringing, that quarterback that he brings along with him, I mean, it's all tailor-made to be efficient and effective here in the Big 12. But the Big 12 has also pretty much become a one-bid conference. And so you have to win the Big 12, and for him to be able to get that opportunity of going to the playoffs right now, I can't see that happening. And I think this team is going to be improved. And so say that maybe they have 6 more wins. That's still at 7. I mean, 6 more wins is an incredible turnaround for any program. But if you put them at 7 wins, you're a lot closer to being at that 6-win mark than making the playoffs. So I think it's closer to getting to that 500 team than making the playoffs this season. That being said, either of those, if you're an OSU fan, you should sign up for in a second compared to the football that they had to watch the last couple of years, because that would be a tremendous step in the right direction. And this team, the energy that would put into the program would be great for them.
You know, in retrospect, obviously, we didn't know what Indiana was going to become, but you look back at their 2 seasons under Curt Cignetti, they're so good both on the offensive line and defensive line. Talking about All-Americans on both sides of the ball, a couple guys that have gone to the next level. You look at this Oklahoma State team, and it's hard to know what they're going to be on the offensive line, what they're going to be defensively, but I think that all the star power right now is in the skill positions. Drew Messamaker, I think, is going to be a great quarterback. I think Caleb Hawkins is one of my favorite players to watch in the country, and they might have the most explosive, diverse set of receivers in all of college football. But the question marks that loom over the offensive line and defense for me are just enough to say I think they're closer to 6-6 than punching their ticket to the college football playoff. And, you know, week 2 at Oregon will be very telling, or week 2 hosting Oregon will be very telling in terms of how they match up against some of the premier offensive and defensive linemen in the country.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. The pre-established chemistry that Drew Messamaker has with a lot of his offensive weapons is going to be huge, but it only goes as far as the offensive line allows it to. And I know we've heard all high praise coming out of the locker room and in practices so far, but I think we won't know for sure until they go up against some top-notch talent, and that, like you said, that'll be the biggest test.
I think the value of an offensive defensive line is a little overrated when it comes to the Big 12. The conference is not known as having the biggest guys in the trenches and controlling that, like it is in the Big 10, like it is in the SEC. So when it comes to maybe winning the Big 10 or Big 12 and getting the opportunity of going to the playoffs, it maybe isn't as important. Now, once they do go, if that were the case, and make it into the playoffs, they would probably have the opportunity of getting exposed by some of these other teams that are going to have a much stronger front line. So if you're talking about making a push to an actual national title or something, or having success there, the offensive defensive line would become a huge issue for them. But if you're just talking about trying to win the conference itself, it's all about, can you put up some points in the Big 12? And if you bring over one of the best quarterbacks in the entire portal, one of the guys that looks like he might be one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country this year, and all of the skill guys that they have, and kind of a head coach that has the mind for offense that they do now have in Eric Morris, they should at least be competitive in the Big 12. And with the way that the Big 12 has been, you can just pull a name out of the hat right now and figure out who's going to be at the top of this thing, because it is a crapshoot every single season, it feels like. So if they're in the mix, they're at least going to have an opportunity. Once they get to the playoffs, different story. You're going to really kind of get exposed maybe for not having the line that you need to have at that point. But they could get there.
All right, give us your take at OK Overtime now on Twitter. We're also going to give you the poll results. Did Brent Venables deserve an extension going into 2026? That's next as we wrap up Oklahoma Overtime. All right, we are wrapping up the show with our poll question. Do you think Brent Venables deserved a contract extension entering the 2026 season? The poll results are in, ladies and gentlemen. 66% of you said yes, absolutely. And we even have a comment from Connor Baldwin. No, and he's not better than Mike Elko. Cameron, what do you think?
You know, whenever it was first announced, I thought it came at a little bit of an interesting time. He's had some mixed results in his time with the program. You know, those 10-win seasons followed up by six wins. I can't remember off the top of my head. But ultimately, I think last year there was a bit of a shift with the program. I think ultimately it is on an upward trajectory, and a lot of the reason for that is in Brent Venables. So interesting timing. Time will tell if it was the right decision.
I would have liked to have seen, maybe, can we get 2 good seasons back-to-back? Because having 2 losing seasons in his first couple of years there, it's pretty rough. That's not something that OU as a program is used to seeing. So I would have held off on it. He still had a lot of years left on his contract. Let him try and prove it a little bit more and then extend him at the end of it. Felt a little premature for me.
Lose week 2 at Michigan, and I think those poll results do a massive flip. All right, that is it for tonight. Thanks to Stone Weber. For Spencer Tillis and Cameron Johnson, I am Colby Daniels. We'll see you tomorrow night on Oklahoma Overtime.